Yeah. It's not. Thank you for joining us, Vanessa. One more minute, we'll get going.
Oh, that's the purpose. Because you're not looking at the door.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Public comments. Oh, let me go back and do, I haven't done a meeting in a while, so. And let's go back and just do an attendance. Let the records reflect that Councilmember Paulo and myself are here, along with the city manager, assistant city manager, our acting city engineer, and our public works or our Parks and Recs director. So with that being said, public comment, anyone wishing to address the subcommittee on items that do not appear on the agenda? Mike, I don't see anyone out there.
Yeah, Chair Walter, no one is in attendance at this time.
No one is in attendance here. Communications, anything? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Cox is with us. I keep forgetting he's not on the council anymore. So, communications, anything?
No communications, Chair.
Okay. Approval of the minutes from July 26th, and I was not present at that meeting. But would anybody like to make the motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move the approval.
I'm having a second.
Okay, any opposed? Let the record reflect the minutes of July 26th were approved. New items for discussion, presentation on update city website, new Parks and Recs web page.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor, Chair, Councilmember Paula, members of the public, Mr. Cox. We're really excited to present this item to you this afternoon. This is an update on our city website, most specifically on what we're referencing as our new Park and Recreation webpage. As you know, we set out a goal during the budget process to start to establish a formal Parks and Recreation department. But with that said, it does take time. But with the addition of our city clerk, Mike Maloney, who is very experienced in using our website, he coordinated and collaborated with our park superintendent Hector Galvan and our assistant manager Kevin Thompson on updating and adding a number of pages to our website. And what we're going to do is just give you an overview of those new pages. They're actually live. They're available. They just went live yesterday. But it's a continuous work in progress. We want to continue to enhance the services that we provide to the community, and the website is a reflection of that. So with that, I'll turn it over to both Mike and Hector, and they're going to walk us through a little presentation update. So turn over to you, Mike.
Thank you, sir. So yeah, just to, as David already gave an introduction, this is just a PowerPoint presentation to show off our new website. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and then I'm going to give a chance for Superintendent Galvin to present a little bit more on each slide.
And that's a natural picture of the play structure. Is that Clark Park?
Yeah, that's Vince Tomatoes part.
Oh, Benjamin's work.
This is, yeah.
That's a great picture.
Yeah, Mike picked some great pictures.
So first we wanted to just kind of read off a statement from the National Recreation and Parks Association as to why parks and recreation are essential public services. And I'll go ahead and leave that up to Hector.
Sure.
Or I can read it.
I'll just want you to read some of these highlights here. Parks and recreation have three values, and that makes them essential services to communities: economic value, health and environmental benefits, social importance, Just as water, sewer, and public safety are considered essential public services, parks are vitally important to establish and maintaining the quality of life in a community, ensuring that health of families and youth contribute to the economic, environmental well-being of a community and a region. There are no communities that pride themselves on their quality of life, promote themselves as desirable locations for businesses to relocate or maintain that they are environmental stewards of their natural resources. Without such communities having a robust, active system of parks and recreation programs for public use and enjoyment.
And with that being said, like I said, we're very excited to present this new website, which can be found at cloverdale.net/parks and rec. Or if you just go to our website, you can go to the department page and Parks and Rec is now highlighted there. This is the landing page. So it has a brief paragraph at the beginning, kind of explaining what Parks and Recreation is and what the department means to Cloverdale, followed by the following squares of photos where you can click on them for specific information. So I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. The first one being our neighborhood and community parks. If you click on that page, it'll bring you to a subpage that has an individual picture of each park along with a description, as well as a park amenities chart and a map. Map looks somewhat similar to this. And each one of those numbers is a location of one of our parks, which corresponds to the amenities chart. As you can see, we have quite the amenities. Pickleball court will be attached to Ferber soon. That's the one column that isn't filled in quite yet. So that's an exciting project coming up.
Mike, real quick, just back to that,
Sure.
the subcommittee mentioned at one time, the idea of understanding what the amenities or having a list of the amenities that were available in each park. And so that's going to be, this website will provide that information, you know, for obviously council, but also members of our community. So anybody can go right on and see, you know, what park amenities are available, which park, and then you got the map with it. So
Yeah.
it's just a helpful way for folks to navigate. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, decided to go ahead and break up our trails and open spaces off of that to highlight those areas and also provide significantly more information, including some more photos, description, and some flyers and downloadable maps. So you can see 2 of our open spaces now. The next section that you can click on is our reservations and permits, and this is an area that we're hoping to build on. Oops. Let's see why we got out of there. On this page, it gives you some brief information, the application to rent one of our other group picnic area or our you see the city park large group picnic area, the city park group picnic area itself. And then I'll leave it to Hector to go ahead and speak on the city park scout hut and future rental opportunities with that.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, so regarding the city park scout hut, the last couple of years, we've been performing some work to the building. We did some electrical work. We did some roofing work. As you can see on the image, we painted the exterior of the building, as well as some of the interior of the building. We're hoping that in the near future, we can actually turn this building into some revenue for the city, for the parks and recs, which the funds can be utilized to go towards the parks and towards probably, you know, the parks and rec. So we're hoping here in the next few years, I did allocate some funds to this building for this next fiscal year. So we're hoping to target the AC system and the furnace, so we can little get this building rentable, so we can create some income.
Yeah, just all the permits for reservations are online now through OpenGov. It's really easy. Just go on there, click on it, send it out to everybody who wants. If anyone has any comments, we get the permits out the door quick.
So before we leave the permits, if we could, on the chart, is there a way to indicate if the park is reserved, a certain part of this? For instance, if you have the Kiwanis Club or the Lions Club going to use City Park barbecue on a Saturday for a community event. So it's really not open to the public, it's already reserved. They submitted an application. Are we able to capture that and put it on the site? So first, people looking at that can see it's reserved for that club.
Yeah, that's a great comment, Councilmember. I don't think
We don't
right now, you know, they're 2 separate modules, but there's no reason why we couldn't calendarize those events with the rentals and stuff. So
Yeah.
that's great. That's a great comment. We'll figure out how we can do that. It may be We'll have to look at how we do that.
Yeah, it's a good one though.
We put
People
on the
know right
calendar.
away if they don't, it's not available.
Yeah, so if the family plans to go down there to do a birthday party, for instance, but yet the Lions Club already has it reserved for. So they go down there and all of a sudden it's like, what are you doing? It's a community park, you know, it's open, first come, first serve, and they're saying, no, we have to reserve. You know, so a way just to kind of mitigate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think we've been using the main calendar, the website on the homepage. To note, important park maintenance events and things like that. We may keep that because it's got planning commission, city council. We're going to do subcommittees, maybe but have a parks calendar where all that stuff just lies and it can be on the parks page. So we'll take a look at that.
Good.
Well, the other way it works too, and not to be redundant, but basically somebody would show up at 7 o'clock in the morning and put their stickers up, not knowing that it's already reserved to the Lions Club or somebody. And then, how do we handle that? Does somebody get out there Friday night and put up stickers and saying, reserved by Lions Club?
One thing we thought about and discussed with Mike was once we get this, which is a great idea, maybe put some type of information center at each location, some type of like a kiosk.
Yeah,
And then like Friday, one of us staff members can go out there and sort of reserve for the weekend. And that way we have it online and we have it on just a regular information center.
that's excellent.
Obviously, the Scout Hut is a future project. I think, I know Vice Mayor, we've had offline conversations just about potential opportunities, and we have to do some more work. One, we're still doing that foundational work to improve the facility so that, it's accessible, it's safe, all the pieces that we want. And then start looking at rental rates and then, what are the offerings that we want to be able to provide within our staffing resources.
Great.
All right, Mike, go ahead.
All right, next we have up is our volunteer opportunities, and this is an area that we are already providing quite a few of these services, so we wanted to basically memorialize them into our website. On that page, you'll go to a site that brings you to our volunteer opportunities, where we're calling our volunteer in parks, or VIPs. We basically have different areas in which they may be interested. So if you are a scout needing an Eagle project, or a student needing hours to graduate, or you're interested in a service, if you're a service club or church group, or a business wanting to do a service project, we have our individual waivers here, our project proposal links that you can click on, and gives you our different programs. So like I said, there's those group projects, there's an Adopt a Park program that we're looking at, as well as the Park a Month program that would be new. And basically once a month, we would coordinate a day in which a different park will have a cleanup day, and hoping that, eventually, if it starts to get some traction, be something that the public would be able to sign up for. Currently, it just be a come on down, help us out kind of event. And we're hoping that our first one will be on September 17th to coincide with the Coastal Cleanup Day. So that's why we chose River Park. And inside these volunteer opportunities, we created a form that is fillable. So this is a volunteer project proposal. Like I said, if you're a student or a scout looking for volunteer hours, you can fill this out and submit it to our superintendent. That's our volunteer page. Just kind of give some more information, which previously wasn't on the website, and can help people out and hopefully get more people into our parks, helping out our programs and cleaning up our parks. And I'll leave it to Hector to add anything else that I may have missed.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. We also have a volunteer waiver that every volunteer has to fill out before they can come work for us. I'm also working with the court referral program, which it's a program that allows, I guess, for example, if you get a speeding ticket, they give you the opportunity to work some of those hours off and labor instead of paying the money. So we're working on that. So hopefully we can get some volunteers from that. And like Mike mentioned, we already get several volunteers from the high school kids that need their I think it's community. I think they need about 80 community hours before they graduate. So we're working with them right now. So on a weekly basis, we have 1 or 2 kids for now. And right now, as we speak, we have one at Sunrise Hills forming some community service hours. So this will just facilitate the process.
What's he doing at Sunrise Hill?
He is spraying mulch.
Oh, in the landscape district?
It's an open area that we spray some mulch.
So next up, we have youth activities and programs as well.
Mark, before we look at that, just a real quick comment. Years
Sure.
ago, the city had what they call Project Pride. It was a group that really, there was a group of citizens that volunteered to, and the city and community and businesses would identify areas with the city facility, a park, or just maybe a business that needed help to clean up around the landscape, whatever. And different areas within the city were picked, whether it was bi-weekly or monthly, and they would go out with a group of people and go to work. So it's just the next step. I think this is really great. There's a lot of people in youth as well that have a need, and we may consider, just throw that out to maybe consider as it gets kicked off, maybe expanding it a little bit, because really it's all keep pride and make the community nice. So I just wanted to share that. Sure.
Just a little addendum to that, on the September 17th river cleanup of Park One. That one is being sponsored by Russian River Keeper. And so if they want to work the Cloverdale location, then they need to sign up through Russian River Keeper also. Yeah, they have their own liability waiver and that sort of thing. I will be working that one that weekend, so. Thank you for that.
So we've been working with Vanessa on for that day for September 17th.
Yeah.
The plan for us, I think if I remember right, it's Friday, September 17th, to get our park staff, including myself, for that day and go out there and help out with that. We're also gonna contact Ecology and coordinate with them the delivery of a secret box over there to some of that debris.
All right, Mike, go ahead.
All right, next we have our youth activities and programs, adult activities and programs. These two squares right now are, we're basically using them, and I'll show you the youth one first, to promote other activities within the city from other agencies. The goal eventually being that we'll have our own programs in here, you know, as the recreation side of the division starts to build on itself. You know, as funding gets allocated towards it, that we can provide some of our own activities. But in the meantime, and you know, even after, we are definitely looking at working with and supporting the local organizations that provide and currently are providing activities for youths and adults. And that's not just sports. It'll be, you know, activities like we've spoken with the group over at CPAC, for example, and they're interested in potentially, you know, contracting with us to have drama classes for kids and just different things in the summer, different camps and programs and leagues and clinics for kids, as well as, like I said, with adults, similar offering programs and potentially things that people can register from through our site that utilize other buildings, for example, like the senior center or like I said, CPAC or even at City Hall. So we're looking at ideas and programs that can kind of get us off the ground. And as things get traction, these two sites in particular will obviously build on themselves. And then go ahead, Hector, if there's anything else you'd like to add between the two.
No, just those activities. We have several local teams that play against each other from all ages. They absolutely there at City Park. So I think right now we are currently working on the baseball lights to accommodate some of those things. So yeah, it is a big successful league. So keep adding to it.
We should have brand new pickleball.
Yeah.
So every Saturday at 11, come down on the brackets. I'll teach you.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
Those two courts will fill up pretty quick.
Well, we'll do that on time.
Great.
So next we have our special events and activities. Currently, this page is another one of those ones that we're hoping to grow dramatically over the years. But first, it's just basically a paragraph explaining some of our programs we already have and some of the events that are already there. Cloverdale Car Show, Citrus Fair, Friday Night Live, etc. Hoping to work with. I spoke with the folks over at the Chamber of Commerce, and they are happy to help us elaborate on this page as we move forward. That's that page for now. And similar to if we move to aquatics, since the YMCA is currently programming this facility, if you click on this link, it brings you to their page. Just an easy way to find the Cloverdale pool. For example, as somebody who is newer to town, it was hard for me to figure out how to find the information on the pool. So this is a little bit easier for folks to find out when they can swim, how much it costs, times and whatnot. So it goes directly to their page. We're hoping that also in the future, though, that some of the programs that we offer, we can utilize this facility, in which case we will build out that page. But for now, we're just going to link it out to the YMCA. Our next 4 grouping is our last 4, which includes public art. The page basically just gives a brief paragraph as to the importance and vital role that art has to the public, and gives links to the sculpture trail and the Cloverdale Arts Alliance, another page that we're happy to build out as we potentially offer recreation programs or classes would be able to be highlighted in this section. The next section is a big one. We know the public often is interested in what's going on in our parks. So our future parks projects page, right now, this is just an example. We actually have 3 items on there, being the Plaza Park restrooms, the Ferber Park pickleball courts, and the City Park basketball courts. And basically this page will give, a quick image of what's going on, and then a paragraph or so of what we're doing there and at what phase they're at. So this is a page that'll kind of be constantly updating so that the public can see, where we're at in different projects. This one's very brief. We just wanted to get the site up and live, but interested in your feedback and members of the public feedback of what kind of information they're looking to see on this page. Whether it's resolutions or dates or a timeline or what have you. It is prohibited by the amount of time staff has to fill this information out. However, I do think it's a great opportunity for the public to be able to see what's happening in their park without having to, call in or ask a bunch of questions or wait till the next time they see it on the council meeting agenda. So they can go and look up the information if they're interested. And Hector, did you have anything else to add on, or Kevin, with this page?
No, sorry.
Well, we're hoping that the dog park will be part of that, and a couple other really exciting things that we're just not ready to put on here yet, but hopefully, by the end of the year, this is going to expand to include a couple more really great projects.
Definitely. Next, we have Arbors and tree removal, which is pretty self-explanatory, but it's a way for the public to actually find the information they're looking for, which would include, different tree preservation rules from the code, and as well as a tree removal application and the contact information for the city arborist. And next, we have a meet the staff. We felt this was an important page to really highlight the fact that we only have, 3 members of staff working to maintain over 500 acres and growing of neighborhood and community parks, including the landscape and lighting assessment districts and the open spaces. So I think it's a nice way for the public to see, like, wow, look at how much we're offering, how much is going on with this amount of staff. Like, it's pretty amazing. I think if you get to, it kind of puts a name to the, a face to the name, and really personalizes our park staff with members of the city. So when they see them out and about, like pretty much most of these say, come on by, stop and say hi. And I'll go ahead and leave that to you, Hector, if you'd like to add anything else to this page with your
A
staff.
lot of certifications.
Another certification, yeah. I only put about half of them in there. I don't want to show off. There wasn't enough room to keep going. So I was overwhelmed. No, that looks great. Yeah, I think it's great pictures, and I think for the most part, and I've worked for the city now going on 14 years. Everybody knows who I am, but it's good to put a face, especially like you mentioned, new folks that are moving into town and they're looking to get a hold of the city arborist, or just have any general questions regarding our parks and open spaces, they can definitely get a hold of there.
And it's a subtle change to in the apparel for our park staff, moved from kind of orange to green. And I think that the green was a way of branding the parks, our parks team, a little differently from our streets.
Yeah.
Other parts of the world. So gonna get Mario green shirt.
Mario.
You won't make the change.
I would say, I'm sorry.
Do the other fellows have any certifications?
Yeah, so Miguel's got a couple certifications we can add in there.
Yeah.
I just sent mine last night to Mike, so Miguel actually just passed a couple critical exams, state exams.
We can get those up there.
Yeah.
add to the credibility of the standard.
Yeah, these are all important licenses, and certificates to have as part of their role.
Absolutely.
You know, being the certified arborist, but also the D1, D2 water operator licenses are issued by the state. Miguel, so Miguel just got the D1, right?
Yeah, we got the D1 and the QAC as well.
Okay.
So next, at the bottom of the page, were 4 links. I built these buttons out. They're important, but I didn't think they necessarily needed a photo for themselves. So if you click on park rules, oops, how I keep leaving that. If you click on park rules, it'll bring you to a page that basically has links to our various codes that are involved with the parks. And we had our police department staff review them, make sure everything was on there that was correct as far as what they'll enforce. Next, we have a park service request button, and it's something I'm particularly proud of that I built out recently. And someone can click on here and they can put in their information and their issue, whether it's vandalism or a maintenance request, or, they notice water is, pouring out of something, and they can submit this request and it'll automatically go right to Hector, which basically just evolves our system currently, because right now they'd have to either call in or come to our front desk and fill out a form that has to then get routed to Hector. So it kind of saves quite a few steps, and hopefully depending on how emergent the issue is, it can get handled much quicker. So next, we have our maintenance schedule. We have had members of the public requesting to.
Michael,
Yeah.
before we pass park rules, I think it's really important that we post our parks with the signage on operate, open hours and close. I think that's really important in the scheme of with the complaints and the number of homeless that are out and about, that we do properly mark our parks, because when they're closed, that means it's enforceable that they have to leave the parks. So I think it's excellent. Thank you for putting that on the site, but we really need to make sure the parks are properly marked. And that especially true with all the lighting landscape and the open space. We really need the signage that those are closed at 10 o'clock. People that are caught on there need to move on. And it gives the police department more teeth to handle those kinds of complaints. I know there's a lot of complaints going on in the Russian River, along the river, and we need to take note. We want to make sure we're properly marked jurisdiction. So thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Next, we have, like I said, members of the public have requested a schedule of our park staff. I'll let Hector speak to that a little bit more, but I do want people to know that if they click on that, it'll bring you to the citywide calendar, which we, update with planning commission meeting, city council meeting, as you can see on there. But right above that was a recent post of Hector's, which showed what date or what time frame he believes his crews are going to be able to work in a given area. So I'll go ahead and let Hector speak to that.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, so part of the reason why we added the highlight projects of the weeks, we do it every like I said, every 2 weeks we post new work activities. And so the members of the community can see, for instance, if you're planning on taking your kids to Furwood Park that day, you'll know, well, look at the calendar. Oh, it looks like Hector and the crew is removing the tree. Maybe we got to go to a different park. So we can, and that's one of the reasons why we did it. Also, it's good for the community to know some of these highlight events that we tackle on a weekly basis. So that's, and so far, not only do we post them here on this calendar, but we also do the weekly newsletter every Friday. And it's, so it kind of works together. Yeah.
Definitely. So our last link at the bottom of the page is contact parks, and it'll basically, when you click on that, it'll automatically open up your email browser and email Hector directly. So basically that is the web page. We just went over it again. This is the landing page. If you go to cloverdale.net/parks and rec, it will bring you to this page. This page is going to continue to be adapt to our needs and to our programs as we, obtain new photos or different times of the year. We're going to basically change these. So it'll be an ever evolving website, but this is it now live. And again, cloverdale.net, Parks and Rec. We invite you all to definitely check it out, encourage you to explore the site, click on different links, let me know, make sure everything's running correctly. And if you do have any ideas or, questions, comments, concerns, if you go ahead and reach out to us offline, and we are happy to address them, because again, this site is going to be ever evolving and we're excited about it.
Mike, are you able just real quickly just to open up your web browser?
Sure. 1 second. Are you able to see my web browser?
You see it yet?
You go to cloverdale.net. You can go to departments, parks and recreation. You can click on any of those links if you're specific to one, or you can go to our main page. It brings you here.
Mike, one question, well, a couple, but I noticed when I'm looking at that page on my iPad that it's not laying out the same way yours is. And I'm just curious, do we size it for the tablets and for the cell phones? Because a lot of times you have to resize those web pages so they fit properly.
Yeah, they are currently sized for a web browser. It is one of the things that I need to look at. The way that Civic Plus works, it doesn't give me a back-end user portal to edit specifically to mobile devices, but I can definitely go through and make sure each one of these photos are at least have the same measurements, so it'll theoretically work out correctly. But again, that is one of the hardships that most agencies have with Civic Plus, is that there's not a mobile back-end user portal or editability. But I can definitely go on and I'll take a look and see if there's anything I can do on my end so that they line up a little better.
Because I tend to think in today's environment, especially with the younger generation, I don't know how many actually hop onto a PC. It's more or less they live on their phone. And they'll probably be using this portion of the city webpage on their phone as they're driving around or, thinking of places to go. So it's just food for thought on how we want to look at that as well.
Yeah, I'm looking at it on my mobile site right now, and it seems like it's lining up well. But
Good. Okay.
we can work off. If any of you ever experience any issues, or if you currently are, definitely let me know, because I have a pretty good relationship with Civic Plus, so I can play with some settings and check with them if we're experiencing an issue. But
Okay.
yeah, that's a good point for sure.
Any other questions, Joe?
No, I just want to say what an excellent start to this. I want to thank you, Michael, Hector, and staff. Fantastic, a lot of good information, and I'm excited to see it expand as we move forward. So this is really helpful.
And
Oh, I was just gonna mention that we're gonna give a very similar, maybe slightly condensed presentation to council tomorrow.
Just one other quick suggestion. I'd like to see something similar for public works down the road. Public work projects, i.e. striping projects, the area road projects when they're gonna close parts of the road. I mean, it just that kind of information when people get advance notice is just invaluable. And so this is perfect. But public works could be another spin-off, learning from this, what's going on with public works and where are they going to have their crews and how's that going to work? And even if we know PG&E is doing work, having where they're going to be closing down part of Cloverdale Boulevard or Hillsburg Avenue there, working on undergrounding or whatever, being able to post that so people know it's a 3-day project. So the information's there. Everybody can go, they know where to go, find out. So this is perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Councilmember Paula, because that is one of the things that exec staff has spoken about, and I've reached out to the different department heads that I'm going to be working with them one by one. This was kind of a test case to work with Park and Recs and kind of see how we wanted to kind of a layout and how things we want them to go. But I'm big on consistency throughout our website, so updates are going to be continuously made. I'm going to be working with the police department next, but I could definitely put public works third in line. And I kind of want to just work with each department so that there's, like I said, uniformity throughout our site so that, if you jump to one of these pages, it doesn't look drastically different from another and you can find the information better Parks and Rec is always a little easier because it can be very photo centric, which is nice. But just wanted to bring that up to you so you're aware that it is definitely a goal of mine to work my way through the departments so that we have that consistency.
We'll kind of do, and what Councilman Paula said, I like the future projects page, and that would be good to see on Public Works, the ones that are coming down the pipe. But if there's no more questions, Mike, I just want to thank you for showing the initiative to tackle this project on your own. And Mr. Cox is sitting on my bad side here. I don't see good out of my right eye, but I understand he has his hand raised.
Well, as a member of the public, going from a city that did not have a park and rec department at all to this and a first-class presentation is just amazing. It's really well done, real well done, and I appreciate all the work that's gone into it. It's great. First class.
Well, thank you, Mike.
Thank you guys very much.
Okay, let's move on to item number 2. We're going to discuss the River Park Joint Powers Agreement between Sonoma County and the city of Cobradell.
Thank you, Chair and Vice Mayor. This item is something that we want input and review by the Public Works Subcommittee prior to bringing to council. Just a quick background, we've had a JPA between Sonoma County and the city for a number of years for maintenance of Coverdell River Park. The term was up, so it's time to bring forward a new updated JPA. One of the most significant changes, of course, was the addition of a restroom facility within the county portion of River Park. So it took us a little time to analyze what the maintenance program was going to be for that restroom, and to include that in the rate analysis that was part of the contract, because it had been a couple of years since we looked at that, and I think it might even encompass some additional maintenance activities related to veg management, but the intent, the language, the agreement itself is pretty much a template agreement. Really, the major update was to the reimbursement amount that's shown in Exhibit A, or excuse me, Exhibit C. So the labor rates were updated, and I think one thing I wanted to note on that is that they do reflect cost of living adjustments in those rates over time. So over the 3-year period, they're adjusted annually. I think was it 3%? 3%. Not knowing exactly what the specific COLA was, but 3% is a relatively supportable figure. And the agreement reflects obviously the changes in the hourly rates. We didn't previously have a superintendent position, so we've added that to those rates, and the additional time associated with maintaining the park's restroom, and kind of ancillary to this, but this is we see this as a way to address the funding for the third position that council has authorized. You see that the annual, the total amount, I think, is identified in the agreement. It's not to exceed $227,000. If you kind of divide that roughly into 3, what is it? It's about, I think it's around 76,000. So it's 76,000 per year, and a significant amount of that time will be the new parks position that will be conducting the restroom maintenance, as well as other routine maintenance at River Park. So our recommendation is that if you forward the council, so we can adopt it by resolution and get support. I need to go to the board of supervisors for approval as well. I think it's more than likely the consent item, but
So just to back up, have we had a dialogue with county park staff? Are they
yes, yeah,
supportive of this?
we've Hector actually has been in direct conversation with park staff. Both Kevin and I have been on calls as well. So we've been working on this kind of concurrently And I think the last communication picture was just.
Go. They agreed on the, that's what they're all support. They're supportive of it, and they, at this point, they're telling us to go.
Yeah, they really don't have the staff to be able to maintain the park, so they really rely on the city staff to be able to do the day-to-day maintenance activities, so they continue to provide rangers.
Yeah, the Rangers will be down there, and David mentioned we would use some of these funds and then supplement some of the major M funds. And we think that can cover the full-time position without having no impacts at the general fund.
So, what was it prior to this new, agreement? Was it like 25,000, 23, somewhere around there?
Yeah, it was about 30,000.
30,000?
Yeah, it's a fairly significant increase.
Yeah.
It was, more than double per year. But again, it's, part of that is, it was with conversation with the county about what was their requested maintenance of the restroom. They want really, it's a daily check and more thorough, maintenance assessment once per week.
Yeah, so they wanted us to maintain the rest of 2 to 3 times a week. It goes them down and perform general thing. And then every day do an inspection. It's pretty much an every day. Especially since the restrooms have been so popular down there with the daily hikers, walkers. So it's been a success, but it does require some time for us to maintain it. There's a little bit of verbiage there on extra vegetation management, which so that's the reason why the president.
I think it's good and supportive, but I'd like to ask Victor if you could work with the city manager, have as part of this, when it goes to the council, as a director, that look for the mayor or vice mayor, basically the mayor's up there, that we send to supervisor or our supervisor, just articulate that this is going before the board, this agreement that we did with the parks, that we feel that this, though there's a significant increase, here's why. And if you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to us prior to deciding. And do meeting so we can discuss it. Let's kind of lay that foundation so it just sets the tone. I think it's important. So if somebody, one of the other board members, raises a question, we're just kind of on board and understands. So he's our supervisor. So just maybe have this to go for approval with draft letter that we can approve that. It goes out to the city council, the supervisor. Just give them a heads up. This is coming before their board.
We don't want him getting blind.
Yeah, and we want him to call us if he has a question, so we can talk before.
Yeah.
We don't want him to get put aside or move forward. We want a chance at these question. Call. Yeah, call David. We can all talk and explain and hopefully get it.
I just have a couple, Hector, we're doing this maintenance now.
Yes, we are doing these now. And then so we plan is going to work with Shannon and David and everyone to get retros, some of that. So we get this approved.
The restrooms actually went online, I think, was it May?
May.
And it recognizing that we didn't have this in place, they wanted to get the restrooms open. They kind of said, you can charge us whenever you want. But Hector keeps really detailed time sheets, so.
Yeah.
We'll be very fair. The additional work with the park will be.
Yeah, I would think there won't be a problem, but it's just good to lay the foundation.
I agree.
Any vandalism that you've seen yet?
So far, no. So far, that we did that. The restrooms have been clean. No vandalism. So far, we had a homeless encampment here.
And they're open 24 hours?
No, so we park staff open the restroom daily. Oh, so we open it around 7:30. The park is officially open at 8. So we open it around 7:30. And Sonoma County Regional Park staff comes in around, I think it's 8 o'clock and closes.
Does he come all the way up from Sonoma?
I think from what I heard, he's a local, he lives here local somewhere, but he does work with them. So I think he goes, I think it's sometimes 8 or 9 o'clock.
So just one thing before we get off of this, on exhibit C, under the 24-25 labor rates, there's no total.
I didn't saw that. It just says email, so we'll add that to the spreadsheet.
Other than that, I think it's great, and I think we're finally going to start capturing exactly what we're doing out there. And I like the polar component, so thank you, Dave. That's really important. And on our joint powers agreements where we're sharing costs, a lot of times I think we have to look for that. Forward. Thank you. If there's nothing else, why don't we go ahead and move on to update parks, irrigation, and the town of Windsor recycling water program.
Yeah, thank you, Chair and Councilor Paula. This is the item that was requested at your July meeting. Chair on the item, but Councilor Paula asked to bring forward an analysis of town with the recycled water program, but we want to talk about that, of course, and Vanessa's here. She did the research that was reflected in the memo of the packet, but also just talk briefly about the irrigation of our parks and what our practice is, and then talk more specifically about the memo and town with the program and what might apply here in Cloverdale. So maybe Hector, just to kind of brief overview of what you've done, what changes you've made to the irrigation system given our water shortage restrictions, what you're doing to address that, and what that entails.
Yeah, well, the irrigation system here with us, the biggest change that we've done was the acquisition of the water buggy. We've been using that to supplement some of the water irrigation. So right now, like we touched on a little bit earlier, right now we have a water buggy that is able to haul 500 gallons a day, 100 gallons per load. So a total of anywhere from 10 to 12 loads are spread through different types of parks, whether it is our 2nd Street City Park or Burger Park, and it's really been essential and vital for our parks department. Now we're, as City Manager David Kelly mentioned earlier, the parks are turning green again, which is a combination of a little bit of water and like the slow release fertilization. So that's one of the biggest changes that we've been doing. Another change that we've been doing with our parks and irrigation system is we've been doing shorter cycles. In the past, we would do longer cycles, intervals. So now what we do 2 cycles. So it's like we start 2 cycles at night instead of 1. And that gives the opportunity for the water to soak in, and that's runoff. So that's another change that we've been not just in our parks, but also in our health. Longer, shorter cycle to let the water that infiltrates the minimize the runoff.
I think it's fair to say the focus really with the water buggy has been to irrigate the portions of our parks where there's sports and youth activities to ensure the safety of those areas. Because the reality is that by reducing our irrigation, it's not only just to reduce irrigation in one area of the park,
Right.
Without all the kind of controls that we would like to have.
Yeah.
So in order to meet the conservation requirements, we dial back the system, but then you supplement it with this water buggy in those areas where there's a lot of high use. So some of those areas you're seeing naturally maybe are turning brown. And if the residents are there is an aesthetic impact, obviously. But for those areas where are being actively used and they're dry or turning brown, and let Hector know. I'll take a look. We're doing this as a water saving measure primarily,
Right.
And using our backwash water to help supplement the irrigation without using additional potable demand. And then Councilor Paul asked us to kind of look at the town of Windsor recycled water program, and our interim city engineer Vanessa Apodaca did a memo. So Vanessa, if you want to touch on that. It's in your work.
Yep, good afternoon. I tried to kind of keep it simple. Recycling wastewater is not really a simple topic. So this is really just kind of a high level overview of what the potential is for the Cloverdale's water right now. I think if you guys read through that memo, you can see a list of proposed uses. I think some of these would not necessarily be applicable to the city, like industrial process water, for example. I don't know that Cloverdale has any call for that, but I did want to kind of just include a comprehensive list here. It is possible to irrigate at the cemetery, non-food bearing trees, landscape impoundments that don't have a decorative fountain, non-structural firefighting, backfill consolidation and soil compaction, as long as you don't come in contact with a potable water pipe, concrete mixing, and flushing sanitary sewers are all kind of things that the city could potentially use the current wastewater effluent for. This would be subject to, the city's got to apply for a recycled water permit from the State Water Resources Control Board. And part of that is preparing a Title 22 engineering report. Also on the backside, additional monitoring and reporting, as well as training of recycled water users would be needed. And so that's certainly something we can help with if the city wants to do that. If the city was to upgrade the treatment plant to produce a higher quality effluent, the restrictions kind of loosen up a little bit. And you can use the water for more things, but this is specific to what Cloverdale could do after getting appropriate permitting and filing the appropriate report. Just kind of a.
Just quickly, did Windsor have to get that permit?
Windsor produces a higher quality effluent, but yes,
I see, okay.
yes.
They have an advanced treatment system. They have 3 page. So it's, there's tertiary treatment, and their tertiary treatment is actually without chlorine.
Windsor is Windsor?
And theirs is it's tertiary without chlorine. So they don't even have a chlorine system on their tertiary treatment system, so that it's chlorine free in essence. It's bacteria free and so forth. Because it needs that higher level, there's more uses that are allowed for it than our current system of secondary treatment. But what Vanessa did do is outline what are some allowable uses. So that's something we could explore further. But it comes with the additional regulatory requirements.
Vanessa, before you go on with your report, if you could just back up for a second. You had said that there were some things we could do if we upgraded the treatment plant.
Well, upgrading the treatment plant is a big task. I was talking with your city manager about this a little bit yesterday, and somewhere in the ballpark of about, 18 to $25 million to do the treatment plant upgrade. And so whether that's feasible in the short term or not, is up to further discussion. But really just kind of looking at this is, what could we do now? And that's sort of where this memo in your packet is geared around.
Well, and I know, but if by chance you come across any grants, that are gonna be able to pay for some of that, please make sure you let us know.
So there is just some kind of follow-up information after kicking this around a little bit here with our recycled water team. I did get a little bit more information. It all kind of depends on this engineering report, and it's subject to State Water Board review and approval. Just kind of going off of, upgrading the treatment quality to tertiary, that could potentially open the door for a landscape irrigation program, whether it's by purple pipe or by truck. It opens a lot of doors for use of that water. It also allows the potential for that water to become a commodity, that others could purchase that water. As it is now, you know, the city with proper training and, you know, the engineering report and permitting can use that water, city staff, but it's not a commodity that the city could necessarily sell, for example. As opposed to Windsor's level of treatment, they're allowed to, you know, open up a fill station and provide that water to the public.
We couldn't do that.
Not right now. That's correct. Even with the permitting and the training and the engineering report, it would have to be kind of in-house.
Even with the Title 22 and training of our staff and, okay.
That's right. That's right. Now, there is potential to develop a recycled water feasibility study. There is a planning grant from the State Water Resources Control Board. It's a match grant of up to $150,000. But that study could identify, you know, potential feasible recycled water projects. It's just, you know, you talked about grant funding. So there is something out there, but it's really intended to explore a feasibility study.
Well, you know, it's unfortunate. We really need to be thinking how we're going to get to that level because the drop's not going to end anytime soon. And we just need to think how we're going to get to a position where we can make recyclable water available to members of the community and businesses, because that's the thing of the future. So I don't know how we get there. I think the planning is probably the first step. So I would certainly encourage that we take a look at that, maybe make application and figure out the next step of where we can maybe apply for federal and state funding to help put a system in place. I know there's a lot of grant funding out there for infrastructure. I'm not sure how much of that, a lot of it focuses on water and drought programs. But when you talk to $18–20 million, for our little city, I think that's going to be a real difficult hurdle, but I think we need to start that process.
Do you think there's any way we can, I know at some point 6 acres is going to be completed if it's not already. And I know at some point they're going to ask us to look at the South Cobradell Water District, which I think they might have already, and then the Range Water District and so on. Is there any way that we could get special money from the state to do tertiary treatment, taking all these water districts in? I don't know. I mean, it's a big burden on us, and it's going to really kick into our water supply. So I would think there might be some justification for asking.
I think, just as you outlined, Vice Mayor, that is justification to ask. I think it's you know, what we're seeing with this move to annex 6 acres and South Cloverdale, it is not something that there's a you know, a clear path that has been you know, done previously. So we're in a lot of cases we're a test case for this program requiring us to begin these new areas. And in those cases, the city, you know, has been adamant that the state paid for the improvements to connect to the system. But likewise, I think it's logical to make an argument that we, you know, the state should contribute to upgrading the plant as well. So I think it's kind of a matter of taking a legislative position with our representatives that, you know, they, you know, because if we ask why wouldn't every other city, but we can say, well, the reason we're a little different, we're being asked to take on these underserved communities, and doing so it has an impact on our system. I mean, we have sufficient capacity, but you know, with that, we also want to be mindful of the impacts on our treatment plant, and you know, can we, you know, can there be legislation written or earmarks to the city enterprise for those improvements, or you know, at least to fund a portion relative to the population that we're adding? I think that makes a legitimate argument. So you know, that would be a conversation that we could have in the future.
you used the word asked, and I look at it more like what they require. They're not asking us, they're telling us.
Right.
And so, no, I appreciate you being nice, but the reality, they're bending to do this. So I think it's only appropriate that we push to get funding to offset.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's smart, and we should be talking to the fire's office as well as Jim Wood's office on this. I volunteered to do that. You give me all the facts and the letter, and I will get it to the right people, asking them what we want. So, I mean, I think it's important that we start that process sooner than later, because you know, we're required to take on more, but we got less. So we're required to do more, and we're requiring the people that live here to do less. And as I mentioned in our last meeting, that's why I brought this up on this recycle, because people have a lot of money in landscape and irrigation systems, and we're just willing to let it die. And that's hard to swallow. So people are very upset, and they're very, you know, they're cheating. I mean, they're using water that they really shouldn't. So my whole, just to bring this up, if we had an alternative water source, they quit using fresh water and go down and pick up 40 gallons of water each once or twice a week to go home and land and irrigate their landscape, keep it alive. It would go a long way. So that's kind of where I was thinking, was more for landscape, outdoor landscape, where people could fill containers and use it for the pump irrigation.
And not to get on my soapbox, but you know, I think as we annex these water districts into the city, that we keep the rights to run that and operate their wells. I know the one at 6 acres might be a little contaminated, but the other two, people are using that water now. We may be able to use that water for our irrigation for the buffalo. You know, we had a big tank somewhere. Not to mention the well that's down at the airport, which I think is Range Water District. You know, it's so convenient, but I'd hate to see it give up the rights to use those wells.
I do want to segue into, you know, some discussion about the irrigation wells at Ferber and City Park. But before we get off of this recycled water issue, just kind of throwing it out there, it could be a much more, you know, economically feasible option to potentially purchase the effluent water from our neighboring agencies. If Windsor, for example, is selling that water, you know, maybe with Hector's groovy water buggy, you know, we could pick up a few loads of water here and there and potentially, you know, use them, or, you know, if there's some way to kind of implement a storage tank that we could, you know, fill it up and sell it to people, that's certainly something we could explore, and it would cost a lot less than some of this red tape that we're talking about.
Well, is Hector running out of that water now? Yeah, so I don't know that we need to purchase it, but, you know, maybe buying it and reselling it to our community might be something to think about. Of course, it sounds very labor intense, but, you know, it's up to the group, so. But Vanessa, were you done with that section of your report?
I was, yeah, we kind of have, I think it's my understanding that these two different things are sort of embedded in this one agenda item.
Okay,
But yes, so that's it for, you know, comparing the town of Windsor's recycled program there.
Yeah, I just, again, just to end it, we really need to figure out a way to bring our wastewater up to a higher level so we can better use that, because it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse as we move forward. So somehow, I'm not sure. We need to do that planning, get that, maybe apply for that planning grant and get that moving so we have a roadmap, what our options are and what we need, which would help, I think, when funding comes available for infrastructure, that we've done the study, we have this, and this is our need. But I think the sooner we do that, the better, because it's getting worse every year. Thank you. Thank you for that report. I really appreciate you checking in with Windsor as well.
Okay, Vanessa, walk back in your court.
Okay,
Are we on the next item?
We're on to wherever Vanessa wants.
yeah, we're still on this item, we're still on item C, and so talking about parks irrigation. And the potential, to talk about these irrigation wells in City Park and Ferber Park. And I understand that these would be, landscape irrigation, quality water, not potable water, not intended to supplement, but more to offset the potable water use. Okay, so we've got a geologist here on staff who has looked into the issue. There is some unfortunate jurisdictional boundaries, and it looks like, at least as drawn on paper, the Regional Water Board considers pretty much the entirety of city limits to be kind of incidental to the Russian River. Of course it is. I mean, it's all connected, but there is a jurisdictional boundary that extends well outside of these two parks. And so it's one of these things, the curtailment order from the state, all of these different drought components that are in play. We're a little bit concerned that if we, try to put a well in either one of these parks or both of these parks, that the state would consider these to be subject to the curtailment order, and it wouldn't help us much. So that's the worry. Now, the geologist thinks that we can make a case that if we draw water in the summertime when we need it, that it won't impact the river underflow until the winter time, when those impacts would be negligible. And he thinks that he can make a very good case for that. It's the big question is, will the water board accept that and approve that proposal or not? In the event that they don't approve that proposal, we can conduct an alternative source assessment to go outside of city limits. I know you guys talked about a spring up in the foothills there. And so, potentially getting water that is outside of the Russian River influence. Okay, so it's not cheap. We're talking about somewhere in the tune of about 147K. That does include a 15% contingency. We've got an expected time to complete the work of about 6 months from a notice to proceed. And he laid out 6 different tasks that would be incidental to that work. Background data review, a groundwater impact assessment, a petition for an exception to the curtailment order. And if that is unsuccessful, it would move into the alternative source assessment. Included in this work is 3 public meetings and project management. And so this is just kind of a quick summary. If you guys want to move forward with that, we can certainly, explore options. We can, prepare a letter proposal. We could potentially do this work under the city engineer, the current city engineer contract. Or we could write an RFP and see if we can get some proposals from other consultants. There may be other options too, but those are the ones that pop into my head immediately.
And all of that, Vanessa, is just to obtain landscaping wells at Ferber and at Second Street.
This would be essentially assessing the feasibility of that.
Yeah.
Actually going in and doing design documents, plans and specifications, that would be a different task. But this would be kind of the necessary first steps.
Okay.
So up at Porterfield, going up in the hills, after you've been up there, there's a flow of water as we speak. I mean, the water is, that used to service the entire city way back when it was a very small city. And it's outside the city limits. It's in the, is there a way that some of that water, there was a pipe that actually ran down to the, I think where the Catholic Church is. There was a shed on, that's where the water came through. And you can see as you walk up through that trail that you can see the pipe where the way out is free running. And I don't think it works anymore, but it would be something that I think we should just at least take a look. Is there a way to capture some of that water and actually put it in a new line, basically ran above ground, just like that one did, to capture fill tanks that could be made available? I don't know. It just seems like that water is just trickling down 24/7. And if there's a way to capture some of that water, we should be looking at that.
Whose land is that on?
It's on the open space. Yeah. And we have city tanks up right over the hill. So now again, could it be, is it treatable water? Is it something that could be used for fresh water? I'm thinking not, but I'm thinking for irrigation, certainly it could be used.
Do we need permission from open space to even?
It's ours.
Well, we had to look at the easement, conservation easement, the match.
We're not building or doing anything. It's water that's there existing.
And I think there would be something, you know, again, you sort of expect to get into feasibility study and doing that analysis, including that option as part of that analysis. I think because part of what Vanessa is pointing out is there's this regulatory environment that we're trying to navigate. And so that's part of the feasibility study, is just addressing the regulatory side of it, and then there's the analysis on the quantity and quality of it. So there's kind of these two pieces, and that's what we want to evaluate, I think. I mean, for instance, we might be able to find water at City Park. We think there's probably decent likelihood. But you know, again, you might test it and say, well, testing the treatment requirements are such that it wouldn't be. But again, taking a step back, what Vanessa is kind of saying is we need to assess the regulatory environment, determine what those rules are, and then kind of, you know, tackle these one by one. So it's kind of it's a starting point. I wish I was here to say, let's go hire a drill rigger and go out and let's see if we can find water over there. But, you know, it's unfortunately it's more complicated than that.
Well, what do you think we should do, Councilman Rapala?
Well, at this point, I would like to just see us look at getting a plan together that you mentioned. There's a planning grant that's available. It's only 50%, but I think, you know, looking at our water impact fee account, I think we can match the 50%. And we should be looking at what our options are and coming up with a game plan to find funding through available federal and state resources. There's a lot of grants dealing with water projects and drought. So if we had a plan, I think we could at least make a good case for some funding to help implement the plan.
And
We
when
have
you,
a lot of ideas, but we don't really have a plan, so.
and when you're talking about the planning grant, you're talking about the upgrade of the wastewater facility, right?
Yes,
Yes, okay.
yeah, because we can't find fresh water anywhere. I mean, it's gonna take an act of God, I think, so we can flush it. So I'm thinking more of how to better use the recycled water for everyday use within the community.
So you're not looking at the feasibility of going outside the city limits and using the Porterfield Creek?
Well, that again, I think that's part of the could be part of the look at this study.
Well, you know, so that, I mean, you know, just looking at this scope of work, if we're not looking at putting wells in the parks or near the parks, you know, this is kind of a different scope of work, and we can essentially kind of skip to task 4. I can revisit this and potentially come back to you guys with an updated, you know, cost and schedule to look at Porterfield Creek, or no, I didn't say that right. It is Porterfield Creek.
Yeah, the springs up on the hill.
The springs up on the hill, yes. And you know, I think the whole thing we were looking at is really wrestling with the water board about this jurisdictional boundary. But if we're proposing to go outside of that, you know, we can certainly kind of dial in the scope and look at that specifically. And I can come to you guys with an updated, you know, potential fee and schedule to look at the Porterfield Creek issue without the city park wells.
And then the other thing was the recyclable. you know.
And yes, so that's kind of a separate point, but yes, I'll certainly look into that.
And what would our share with the grant be?
So it says she said it's a match. I'm assuming it's a 50% match.
75,000, you said.
Well, a grant the grant is a match grant of up to 150,000. So I believe that's correct, 75K from each party.
And that's max, it may be less than that.
It may be less than that. It may also be more. If it ends up being, 200,000, then their grant would be 75K max.
Well, the scope of work, we'll know what before we award it.
That's correct.
Yeah,
That's
so
correct.
We'll know what the price will be.
Right.
Staff.
Well, for Chair and Councilmember, I think, we're kind of talking about two distinct items. One is the feasibility study for the wastewater treatment plant, and that's to start doing the evaluation work to move forward with, it's really the study, the steps to move to advanced treatment. And I think that's a standing PIP. It's a good time to ever start doing that feasibility work, to start identifying what are, because there's different options for advanced treatment. Some just packaged, they're built in place, and they come with the different pros and cons that we want to look at. And right now we're not being forced to do it, so it might be a good time to kind of start that work and really better understanding what are our options, what the cost will be for those different options. And what I hear is direction to move forward with applying for that grant to do the feasibility study. The other item that we're talking about is how can we supplement, augment, or improve our water supply production. One of which is to look at the possibility of utilizing water at Cobradell Creek. I would recommend we do that. We do kind of a comprehensive evaluation of whether we could put in irrigation wells, or maybe we take it to the next step and say, well, if it comes with all these regulatory hoops, we may want to look at, well, maybe it makes sense to build, or if we're going to construct a well and it's a good producer, that we add it's a new well for our city water system. Yeah, that's potable. We have to look at, again, the feasibility of getting it from a park to the treatment plant, or some alternative treatment method. Again, I think the approach we were coming in with was, initially without the regulatory requirements, was can we move quickly to get a well to be able to irrigate our parks? And so that, in the theory being, or not theory, but the practice would be, we would be able to offset all the, our parks use a fair amount of water, so we wouldn't have to use our treated water that is more expensive, and we could use our less treated irrigation water. But I think maybe looking at those different alternatives along with Coverdell, to me, would make sense. So that we're doing a comprehensive evaluation of those different opportunities. Because, I also, we saw in the 2019 floods, a couple of our wells got impacted by the floodwaters, and so, that was a big event. It wasn't, the most historic event on record. We're hearing now that there's more concern about flood events that very well could impact some of our wells. So to have something, maybe it's from a regulatory perspective, it's treated the same, unfortunately, but maybe it's in a different position, different area, so we're not all relying on just one geographical area for our wells. So, that'd be my thought, and that would be coming up with developing a scope that really is going to look at this issue comprehensively, so we can look at all these different options, Porterfield, Berber City, irrigation, and or potable, what that kind of looks like.
I think that's excellent, and that is a roadmap as funding becomes available for us to look forward to make application.
Right. So we can apply for funds to just drill a well. Okay.
With the study that we've done, so attachment to that.
One of the ideas too that we came up with, I think, back when we were discussing Porterfield Creek was, and I don't know if this is possible or not, but it's just an idea, is to capture some of that water that we're talking about and somehow pump it up to we have our 3 storage tanks up there, pump it up to the top and put it directly into our system. And that would minimize digging a new pipe in the street. And then Darren will be the person to talk to about that. Maybe capturing that water, create some kind of pumping system and a small treatment plant system to treat the water and send it back up to the tank.
And that's what the study can look at. That's exactly the kind of stuff.
And, in terms, is Vanessa kind of laid out, some different procurement options. One, this work could be covered under the kind of city engineer contract. One would be a letter proposal or one an RFP. I think of those three, I would recommend a letter proposal from West Yost. And the reason being is West Yost is really one of they're known for is their expertise in water. I don't know firms we work with. If there's another firm out there that's necessarily has the background qualifications to do the evaluation as West Yost does. I think it's a testament to the work that they've done. And we kind of treat it separately so that we have a clear agreement what the work is that and how that work's going to be funded, which I think would be an enterprise funded activity versus the city engineering work, which is funded kind of a combination of L&L's general fund, wastewater fees and so forth. So that would be my thought on that.
Vanessa, just a quick question. I don't mean to belabor this much, but so the water agency considers everything within the city limits as being part of the Russian River water supply.
It's, I can get you guys an exhibit. The jurisdictional boundary line that they've drawn, as it pertains to the Russian River and what they consider influencing the Russian River, it does line up very well with city limits. When I looked at it, there was a little piece of the city way in the north part that was outside of this jurisdictional boundary, but it's not at the parks. And it really does encompass the majority of the city.
Well, for years, we've been kind of hoping that we could annex in Barnes Lumber, which is to the north of us, down across from Hamburger Ranch. And if they have a well on their facility right now, and we annex them into the city and they say, yes, you can go ahead and use that well. See how it's an existing well, would that prohibit us from doing what we want to do?
That I don't know.
I mean, and even the property, like, for example, where I had mentioned the North Cloverdale Water District, which is Church Lane, which is in the county. So once we annex them in, if they have some type of a well, that's not considered a new well for Cloverdale, I would think.
Let me do some exploring and I'll get you guys some information about that for the next time.
Okay. Because we have all that land to the south. That's like the Jerry Moore's New World Manufacturing, the Cook's property, they all have wells. And if we could tap into those wells, if they gave us permission, sold us water, I don't know.
Sure.
Okay, well, just something to chew on.
And, just something else before we move past this. I really like what you said, Councilmember Paula, Walter, about the potential to ask the state for, funds to upgrade the treatment plant, as we annex these troubled water districts. Similarly, if it's the same water board, I would argue the same thing, for potential jurisdictional considerations of other wells. Anyways, just kind of, tying it all together in a holistic way. It could be a bigger stretch for the wastewater treatment plant upgrades, but to come in and say, look, we're annexing these water districts, we're really looking to offset potable water use. We would love to get permission to put a couple of park wells in. I feel like that's a more direct connection. Anyways, as we move through those negotiations, that would be a good thing to kind of plant the seed on.
Thank you. Anything else before we move on?
No, thank you so much.
Okay, Well, next is the update proposal for the citywide street striping plan and pavement management program.
Thank you, Chair. And, you know, Vanessa has been coordinating with Debbie Trans. This is the proposal that, you know, you've seen or reviewed under previous agendas. But we've been trying to kind of pare it back to reflect the committee's direction that, you know, we really pursue getting striping down as quickly as possible. And I think, you know, Vanessa's perspective on that was, you know, there's still some need for technical assistance here, and working with Debbie Trans to identify kind of, you know, a work product that would enable us to move forward efficiently but effectively. But Vanessa, I'll turn it over to you and let you talk a little bit about what you've been working with Debbie Trans on, trying to kind of pare this back, reflecting the subcommittee's input and perspective on striking.
And so right now, what's in your package is, and it's not a final scope. If it, you know, it doesn't have a rate sheet. It's very kind of preliminary, waiting for, you know, feedback from the subcommittee here. So initially, this started off as kind of a redesign of all the arterials. And I'm just going to go back in a brief history here. Redesign of all the arterial striping and to get that updated and consistent. And that was about 67K. And then we looked at just Cloverdale Boulevard, doing a redesign and updating the striping accordingly. And that was about 32K. And so now what's before you is really just pared back. This is very similar to what Windsor does. And it's also W-Trans. She's kind of the local provider of these services. And so now we're looking at about 26K to just update the striping as it sits today along Cloverdale Boulevard. And so that's what's in your package now. It would be in effect a set of bid documents, and then you know, once these are prepared, we can put the front end specs together, which is the city contracting documents, and then potentially put the project out to bid and get the striping work done.
So when you say redesign, it's really a maintenance, as we talked about. It's the existing, where the existing stripes are that are faded, is putting them back.
That's correct. That's what's in the packet right now for the 26K.
Could you help me understand the 26,000? What is that going to do? I mean, it's going to be a report that shows what?
It's essentially going to be plans and specifications to put the project out to bid.
And that's for the entire project or just Cloverdale?
It's for Cloverdale Boulevard.
And what's your definition of Cloverdale Boulevard?
I would define that as North and South Cloverdale Boulevard, excluding the little area in the middle. I want to say it's in front of there's a church there, possibly the Cal Fire Station that's in county limits.
Okay, so it's from one end to the other, all the way up to the hamburger end.
Correct. And this, you know, it's kind of a not to exceed amount that's in the proposal. If it comes in less, it's a time and materials contract. And if it comes in less, then, you know, the city wouldn't see the entire bill for that. But she's sort of broken it out. I want to say she broke it out to about 35K per plan sheet.
Yeah, she did.
And specs is specs, whether she's doing the big design or just the maintenance project. You know, specs are specs, whether you're doing a big project or a small project. And so there's some, you know, just kind of, I wanted to just sort of run through the background of these numbers just for some kind of economy of scale, if you will.
So, you know, I guess I look at it I oversimplify it, I guess, in my mind, because I look, as you drive around the city, you get off Cloverdale Boulevard, there's a lot of intersections where the stop on the pavement is gone. It's faded, so it's a matter of, we don't really need to design, we just we put the crosswalk in because it's faded. We put the school zone yellow crossing, redo it. And that's throughout the city. And it just, I guess from my standpoint, 26,000 that we're spending on the design, we put a lot of that on the street. And I'm really troubled. I'd just like to see us hire a crew to come in and just go to street to street to street to street and put these in. Now, I guess if you're suggesting when you do the double yellows on the main arterial street like Cloverdale Boulevard, it takes a special design and all that. I get that, but it seems like to me $26,000 is a lot of money. A lot of striping. When we have 200,000 allotted, I'd like to see us get a lot of stuff done with that money. And not just Cloverdale Boulevard, though that's a big one, but throughout the city. And again, there's crosswalks that are non-existent or very faded, stop that's totally not readable. It just needs some major work. And that's what I'd vision a crew coming in each street, just go from this intersection to the next one, to the next one, and paint. So, but I don't know.
I don't know how we do.
I don't either.
Well, and I think, you know, for example, I'm going to mobilize the streets crew here to get some striping in on Foothill and Cherry Creek Boulevard, because there's a Comcast encroachment permit. The stop bars are terrible, just like you said. And I really think that before we let Comcast go, you know, do their project here, we need to update that striping because they're going to be right at that intersection. So, you know, being able to kind of deal with some of these, you know, for lack of a better word, I'm going to call that an easy intersection. It's relatively low volume. I think the streets crew, our streets crew could do that in relative safety. The boulevard, I don't see that. The boulevard, it's a long stretch. There's a ton of traffic out there. You guys know people are only halfway paying attention when they're driving around town. They're going too fast. And so really, you know, speaking about the boulevard, the arterials in general, I really do think that those need to go out to bid. I think that it's just a bid project. It's a little bit beyond the capabilities of our streets crew. You know, you need the traffic control, the flaggers, there's a bunch of safety provisions that need to be in place. And I just think, you know, for one thing, our streets crew is very small and stretched thin as it is. You know, we could solicit park staff to come help with traffic control, but Hector's very busy. Anyways, I think it's just really, you know, the boulevard and the arterials, I would really encourage that we go out to bid. It's a risk management issue. You get potential for lower bids to come in if you have clear specifications. You know, it reduces the potential for change orders. You know, some contractors like to play those games. You know, maintaining, if the existing striping is somewhat disjointed, I hear you guys say that there's, you know, kind of a turn to nowhere. You know, some areas have these dots and reflectors, and some areas have striping. With the maintenance program, all of that stuff stays in place. It just gets replaced in kind. A design would get away from that. So these are kind of the two options about how you go approaching the striping projects.
So would Foothill Boulevard fit into this? Because that's another arterial street.
Well, now, if we're talking, it depends how far outside you get. The intersection that I was talking about a little bit ago, I think that the streets crew could do that pretty safely.
The boulevard, it runs, you know, north and south, and it carries quite a bit of traffic. That's the two north and south arterials in our cities, Coverdell Boulevard and Foothill Boulevard. So, and they both need, because some of the double yellow lines are really faded on Foothill as well, that really need to be fixed. So would that be part of the scope of the study and of that 26,000?
Well, it depends what you're talking about. So the one that's in your package right now for 26K, that is specific to Cloverdale Boulevard. And I think, you know, we're talking at about 17,000 lineal feet. It's a substantial length there. Daleen is anticipating 7 plan sheets to go with Cloverdale Boulevard specifically. Foothill Boulevard, she did have in the original scope for 66, what was that, 67K, but that included a design. It was a design to make the arterials all consistent with each other. And so just to give a quick rundown, it was Citrus Fair Drive, Cloverdale Boulevard, First Street, Foothill Boulevard, Jefferson, and locations of concern up to 3 additional sheets. So that was the original proposal that you guys saw. Gosh, I don't even remember when this was. February.
And that was 67,000.
That was 67K,
That
correct?
would leave 130,000 when we actually start doing the work, which would be a big bite right out of the budget. So we'd have the plans, but not enough money to do the work.
Now we can certainly, so here's kind of the, we're not comparing apples to apples, but we can potentially fine tune this a little bit. If there's interest in doing Cloverdale Boulevard and Foothill Boulevard, and just a maintenance exercise where we're replacing what's there. We can certainly go back to her with that feedback and get a little bit more of a dialed in proposal for that work.
That's what I was looking at.
Yeah, I was just looking at replacement, not a
It's
redesign.
maintenance and not redesign, but just bringing it back up where it's visible and enforceable.
And I have been checking with the other neighboring agencies, and everybody puts this stuff out to bid, specifically for the arterials. We're not doing anything outside of the norm. I get what you're saying. It's just like you can't go get an auger and drill in City Park. Those days are just behind us. It would be really nice if we could send a couple of guys out there with a paint bucket, but it's.
You're doing it now.
Well, I think we should, if we're gonna do it, Joe, I think we should do Foothill and Cloverdale Boulevard, the 2 major arteries. And let's see how the process goes. So that would be my suggestion, is let's come back with another proposal that.
And also, I put Treadway on there between Cloverdale and Foothill, because that should be double yellows, and they're not. So, and you have 2 shopping center with grocery outlet, a lot of traffic over there. And, it's neighborhoods are parking and no parking, and it should be double yellows, and they're totally faded. So that's an important street, I think, that needs to be looked at.
Just for sake of time, will the subcommittee recommend we make those revisions and just bring them to council, or do you want us to bring it back?
Well, I'd like to know how much it is before we bring it to council. Okay. But Joe, what do you?
Well,
think?
we know what we have as a budget. I'm not sure if there's any other money in the measuring of budget. We can actually move to help augment some of this, but maybe we could check that.
Yeah.
I'd like to see the 200 go towards paint on the ground and study. Maybe we could find a little bit more money in the measuring fund that to move over to cover the cost of the study, so we could really hit it hard. It needs it.
Right. This is the question. I think what we're hearing from Vanessa is just the importance of developing the specs, and to have the bids be based on those specs, because otherwise we might find ourselves negotiating with contractors on bid changes and things like that. In order to just you become a verbal discussion rather than a discussion based sometimes where those written specs.
So do you want to come back here?
Well, every time we do that, it's another month, and that's what I'd like to see us get this thing moving, Yeah, before with a little luck, we'll have rain this year, and we're getting close to that time, and so I can see that becoming another issue. If we,
Well, let's just bring it right to council.
I think so. I mean, unless there's a reason that you come back, I think you're kind of hearing what we would like to see. So maybe the next, but David, I would like to know if you could just check the measure out, because I really think it's important. I'd like to see us have enough money to make a dent in the project that we, I was optimistic when we had the 200,000, but now that we're looking at the design, taking a big bite out of it. And I think it's important, but I'd like to see the 200 go towards the project, so we can get a lot of it. Thank you.
So we're not really looking at the design, we're looking at the paint.
Well, it's a design, it's gonna go to bid, and that's where we're looking at it. It could be 50, anywhere from 26 to 62,000, somewhere in the middle. That's how I see it. Hopefully closer to the 26, but
Yeah.
we got a big area. to work with.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to make a comment on this?
Thank you, Vanessa, for your
I,
work.
I just have one more thing to add to this topic. You know, I was in Windsor yesterday. And I was green with envy. Because I went to Starbucks on where the Mary's Pizza is. And then I took the back roads, Redwood Highway, and I turned at the fire station. I think it's one that brings you to Walmart, which is where I was going. What was it called? No, not Shiloh.
Temporary.
They paved from that intersection of Redwood Highway all the way down to the stoplight next to Home Depot. Yeah, new paving, new striping, and I was so jealous because I can't imagine what that costs. Where the heck do they get their money?
That's the town.
It's come, yeah, they budget, just for reference, they budget about $1 million a year for street, they call it pavement maintenance. So every year they do one project, and it's usually $1 million.
We got to start doing that. So
They got Home Depot and Walmart too.
yeah, that pays for that. Thank you, Vanessa. All right, why don't we move on? If there's nothing else to talk about there, we can discuss the stop signs.
Well, that should be, I think that was a carryover.
Yeah, that was, we removed that one.
Yeah,
out.
that was removed. They were gonna send a letter and look at, and that.
I saw it, sent her an email.
Yeah, so that was.
It's
on mine too.
Oh,
No,
But it shouldn't.
yeah, that's why it was missing, there was a missing E there.
all right, well then let's talk about the new signs at the new park signage at City Park.
Well, Vice Mayor Chair, you requested this agenda item. I think we heard Councilmember Paula say earlier was that interest in getting new signs that identify the park rules.
Yes.
Particularly in City Park, but
Well, I'm referring to what I see on a Sunday morning, and particularly on a Monday morning, when there's just trash all over. And the Parks and Recs crews have to go in there and pick up all these pieces of paper. It's a big waste of time. I just think if we had signs on the pergola in English and Spanish that just simply said, pick up your trash, however we want to word it, it would save a lot of work. There are plenty of receptacles throughout that park. You know, you trip over something. So I think we need some signage. I don't know how we designed it. I don't know that
We can, maybe we can incorporate the those signs for the park hours and regulations. With this. I did set a budget aside for the city park to redo the signs. So this came out earlier last year. So we did put some line item, some money aside to replace the existing signs for those, some signs that are, you can read better. Maybe we can incorporate this, and I think it's a great idea. You know, my staff, including myself, spend up to two or 3 hours on it. There's, 30 garbage receptacles. So I think having violate won't happen. If you just understand, read it. I think it's a good idea.
And I don't think we have much trash, if any, in the ball field. You know, I think the guys are good. I mean, they play there every Tuesday night for leagues you refer to. You know, they pick up their beer cans and whatever else they drink and make sure they find the trash can for it. So, but it's just out, around the playground area. Okay. Okay, well, that brings us to standing and continued items. And David, I'm just going to turn the gavel over to you to go down the list, and we'll kind of stop here if we have questions.
Okay, well, I'm happy to do that, Chair. This item states update on the city grant application. we've been working with a DWR staff engineer on that agreement. It's actually probably one of the most extensively drafted agreements that I've ever worked on. But I want to thank Vanessa for her work on putting all the language in there. So part of it is not the agreement itself, it's really about the projects and the timeline and how it's going to be carried out. The DWR wants a lot of detail. And so we submitted our final version back to DWR, I think last week, Vanessa.
I have it on August 12th.
Yeah, so a little longer than a week ago. And so we're just waiting for their final approval. Usually if there's any administrative changes, they would have gotten back to us by now. So we're hoping that in the shape and form that they can finalize it and send it to us for signature. So we're just kind of waiting to see at this point. Water supply update and drought response. We have been looking at our current water shortage emergency. We're at stage 4. We were planning to bring forward for council consideration a change to stage 3, so reducing it from a 35% water conservation standard to 25. That was going to align with our voluntary drought agreement. The challenge was that shortly after we entered into the voluntary drought agreement, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission granted PG&E variance for reduced flows from the Potter Valley project into Lake Mendocino. And there's been this uncertainty on what impact it's going to have on the water supply system. The state board has since subjected some of the voluntary drought agreement to curtailment. The city, being a pre-1914 water right holder, hasn't been subject to the curtailment yet, though we're still doing all the mandatory reporting that came with it. So really, at this point, we were kind of what we were concerned about was bringing forward a reduction, and then all of a sudden, we're put back in a situation where we're having to do more strict conservation. So, it's something we think from staff's perspective, our water supply is in good shape. It might make sense to go ahead and make that change, or it's really kind of council direction if you'd like to bring forward that for a discussion and consideration. What comes with that would be a reduction in the water shortage contingency fee, which would help our customers a little bit in paying, reducing their surcharge. But we didn't want to be put council in a position that it's kind of where we're sitting right now, kind of in a limbo position given the uncertainty around the position on our water supply. That's kind of where we stand. But if you feel like it would be beneficial to bring this up to council and have council weigh in on the decision, and we certainly there's enough reason to support it. If you wanted to move to a stage 3, or just have a conversation around what are the pros and cons of moving to a stage 3, given its impact on our water supply, the federal legal framework.
Do you have any preference on that, or is it a little premature for us to?
And we're fine with putting it in hold. I just wanted to kind of fit in that question.
I don't like to see it just stay on hold. I'm not. This point. I think just stay. Feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay, perfectly fine with staff. We were just
Thank you.
uncertain on that, so we'll look at it more closely. If things change, we'll obviously apprise the subcommittee and council. So moving on, let's see, item 6C, the update on the traffic pedestrian safety study. We've executed the contract with a traffic safety engineer there in Peters. Their scope was presented at the last subcommittee meeting. We were recommended to proceed. They've started doing the background work and evaluation, the traffic counts to support their study. So they're moving forward, and that message was given to them pretty clearly. move forward as quickly as possible. So that project's been moving.
Thank you for that, because we did ask that they prioritize that project.
Next one is update on options for pickleball court installation. Really, it's not options at this point per se, I don't think, Hector. It's, Hector, you wanna give a current update?
Thanks, David. Yeah, so at this point, we've been, Kevin and I and staff, we've been ready for this project for quite some time. At this point, we're waiting for the contractor to begin the construction of the project. He did come out last week and shot some elevations. And also, according to the contractor, put in an order to buy the material. And so he did do all that. And the plan is tomorrow. The plan was for him to start tomorrow, first thing in the morning. Of course, we got an email this morning saying that he won't start till Thursday. So this Thursday, I think we're gonna. I was drinking coffee when I got that phone call at 6:30 in the morning.
Just to back it up, it was supposed to be last week.
Yeah. So I think he is gonna start this week. And so, according to Anderson Excavating, the process will take anywhere from 5 to 7 business days to complete the court. And then after that, the fencing contractor will come in and install the Coggins fencing, who was awarded the bid, will come in and install the fencing. And then after that, the servicing contractor.
How high is that fencing going to be?
Well, originally we wanted to put a 4-foot fence, and then I know Brad came out to here at the public works sub and wanted it to extend it to 6 foot, and that's what we're doing. 6-foot fence with a 4-foot fence, 6-foot fence all the way around.
And is it going to have a gate?
We're gonna have 2 gates, or one gate, one large gate, so we're able to get in there and do perform any maintenance. We're thinking it's gonna be really nice if the contractor goes out there and start working.
No, I was kind of hoping that, people don't perceive that as a dog kennel and let their dogs in there, or the kids get in there and start playing and.
What's the question that you're gonna have a meeting with Brad and sit down and talk about security for the facility, a storage container they want to provide and have. And I really encourage if that hasn't happened, if you do that.
It wasn't a meeting in person, but we've been emailing each other.
Yeah, it would probably be helpful to sit down and talk about security, because what we did with the tennis courts, if you recall, when we went into collaboration with the Tennis Association, School District, and the city, those courts are kept locked. And they're locked for a reason. But yet anybody can go play. There's a phone number to call. In this case, they call Brad's number. But he volunteered for that. It's actually worked very well for the last 10 years, because it's been in existence since we redid this court. But and he gives them the code and they can go in and play. But I'm not suggesting that's going to be the plan, but we really should talk about the plan so that it doesn't become used for inappropriate things. So
So we are planning on having a camera on the snack shack area, more lights. One idea that we came up with too, just an idea to throw it out there, is as part of the regular maintenance routine in the morning, we would open up the gate to pickleball court. And at the end of the day, we'll make it part of the routine to lock them up. That way it's open from time to time. So that's one of the ideas. I know Brad has been talking about the boxes to store the box. I talked with Fletcher. He said he will be able to fabricate some security box. And I know Brad was talking about last email. He said he was talking about maybe doing some fundraising and to see if we can gather up some funds to purchase it.
Just curious, what do we need this box for? What's going to go in the box?
well, I think they're talking about nets and different things that they use on the courts and different things.
So the nets, what we're thinking, I mean, just an idea, the nets are gonna be permanent, they're gonna be there, and then everybody could bring their own equipment, like we would do with the metals part, and that box is.
Sure, I was invited and I went to a gathering in this pickleball group. So it's a pretty good sized group. I gotta tell you, there's probably 25 people that were at this particular event. And they're very excited about this. So I really think it's important. Brad is the lead person on it. He's kind of the head of this little association. I mean, they got T-shirts now. They want to do competition here, and it's a big deal. So that's why I'm suggesting you really get him into that conversation, because he's got a lot of good ideas too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a collaboration. We're moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
Want it for everybody, but he's got some good ideas, and I don't want hindsight to go back. Well, look, we got trash. We didn't do anything to stop it. It's, you know, we really want to be in front of that. So, and they want to do the last thing, Justin, they want to do a ribbon cutting. I want to make sure the chamber is involved in that. So I kind of had a contact David and say, look, because you had the date picked out. So, well, let's slow down. Let's get, so David, talk to him and get that. They want to do demonstrations. We talked about, they want to do some refreshments and that kind of thing. So, but it's good. It's all good stuff. So, but we want to facilitate it with them.
One thing we talked about, David, Kevin, is maybe purchasing, using the Parks and Rec fund, purchasing some paddles, some paddles with some little, like a kit, and give them out that day, you know.
He's talking about doing, having some prizes as well, donations. So that's what I'm saying. It's just kind of hit just a meeting and just brainstorm all this and kind of come up with a plan that everybody's engaged in. Because I'm okay with whatever you guys all think is going to work best for the city, with the understanding these are the users of that. So we want to kind of match it, make it a positive thing. There's a lot of excitement right now. So
Every day out there with that.
yeah. So this, I think just one half-hour meeting would put this all on the same page. That's all. And emails get lost. I mean, people, you know, they're not clear, and so another email. Just sitting down. What do you mean by that? How's that work? Or what about this? And you come up. We all live with this. Yes. Boom. Go ahead. Next. Yeah. So it's a good idea. And I think the ceremony, we definitely want to promote it because it's one of the many things that we're doing that's really positive.
Yeah, it is. So finally get some use out of that.
Your chamber does a good job promoting this. I don't know if Brad knows it. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff we could say, well, wait, how about the chamber? If they're going to do the ribbon cutting, they come, we're going to go to the neck, you know, get this, we're going to get it out that way. So the website, but it's the strategy.
Yeah. I'll give that to Nina as a man about.
You want to understand about the grants maybe over there?
Well, that's what I think I'll be at his house. That's
Well,
what
I just want to. Everyone's good idea. I want lots of people. And they're all really excited.
Yeah.
We want it. We don't want to disappoint it.
Yeah.
We probably want to start looking for another site to do.
Say, you only have one floor.
But
It's too.
It's either when we were meeting with the school district on the MOU, I already broached it for a couple there, so they could be dual use of the tennis courts, and they were open to that idea. But then there's a few issues. So, but that was going to be the next step, is to have the tennis courts also do both. So you can one of
It's just added really some additional strike, right? So it's not they have, you know, to redo this.
So nothing, it's just additional striping to be used for both. And the school district is open, very open. And so I wanted to get that into the MOU. But then summer came and there's a little things are dealing with, you know, so.
Yeah, so we can send some of this stuff to this project, like for signage and stuff. And we can implement it part of what we're doing, signage in the parks. We can maybe install some signs out in the parking lot, curb park. Notifying people, pickleball parking lot here, so they don't park on the street, because this is gonna be big, they're gonna be, you know, a few blocks away. And it was, we can encourage them to come in and park, they use the park.
We want to prevent, like, Councilor Walter, Vice Mayor Walter says, having a dog. That's really not the it's for that, for the skin.
just take the skateboard in there.
Well, that's why I think talking about whether it should be locked, with certain people, you call whether it should be. So, we all get it. I don't know, but we just don't want it to be misused, if at all possible. So yes, it will be, and then it's gonna cost money to go back. Repair things, so we gotta be careful. Yeah, so that's what Brad and that group's concerns are about that. So.
Okay, I'm back at you.
So
Okay.
anyway, thank you for all your work.
Next item was update on Cobradell Plaza, public restroom project. Kevin issued a notice of award that was approved by council on August 18th, last week, to Regi Construction. We are going to schedule a pre-con agreement. It really is about timing, coordination and timing with the work and the activities on the plaza, as well as when the restroom is going to be delivered. It's like delivery date for the restroom was pushed back to mid-November. And we've got a couple of uses for the plaza that have been scheduled. Obviously, waiting until Friday night is done. There's a Kiwanis event the first weekend in October with Courtney's Pumpkin Patch. So we'll want to, that they've reserved the plaza already. And there's one event beginning in November from Familia Saunas. So we're kind of looking, I think, maybe immediately after that. Either after the October event, we'll start construction, do the underground work, have the event, and then the restroom being delivered in mid-November, be able to, all the underground work will be completed. It'll be just a matter of siting the restroom, crane, do the final connection. So hopefully before the end of the fiscal year, we'll have a new restroom, but I think. And then Victor is going to start doing some of the, maybe at the end of FNL. I don't know.
That's what I was thinking. The last Friday Night Live is September 2nd. So we're thinking the following week, we can come in with our park staff and remove two of the trees. That need to be removed, reroute some irrigation lines, and cap off all the prep work for the guys here. So that it probably takes about 3 days worth of work. I think we can get that done. So we do want to make sure we get in there and get, so we don't delay the contract. And then temporary basis, we can always fence off that specific section of the restroom pad for any events in the plaza. We can still utilize the rest. So that's one issue there.
And I think the phone booth stays, right?
Yeah, I think
It's not the way.
I think it stays, yeah. It does work. You found out.
People use it too. They do, yeah.
I don't know how to use it.
It's got the room. Who cares money?
But it does work.
Sorry, David, go right ahead.
Oh, so that project, I think is, moving forward, it's on track. And we're just, gonna be working with Regi on the construction contract and the insurance and bonds, getting that in place before we're ready to go. And then once the restaurant gets delivered.
So once it's delivered, how long? They set it. Put all the-
I think we do that within a couple of days.
3 days in setbacks.
So there may be just as a thought, just something to think about after the last reserved event, might want to ask staff to put a hold on week that you anticipate that, so there's no bookings. So we make sure we get that. Otherwise, if somebody goes in and just keeps pushing, have a block. So it's in set up.
Yeah, and then I think the plan too, the plan was talking to we needs to come in through the parking lot, our parking lot behind the park. The restroom and put it in place instead of going through the plaza, with more obstacles. Here's that straight shot, should have put it there.
But I'm just saying this so we don't have to keep moving that. Yeah. So the park's not available. There's no construction.
What's a basketball course? Only bid, October 16th.
and 2 full-size courts. We opted for no lights because the park is closed at dusk. So we're asking to put the chase in for electric for future use. Right. We change our mind, but yeah, it's plans are pretty much done. Let's be able to do it on the 16th.
On the other court, 16th, but.
Oh, wait. I mean,
So it has October 16th. We can double check.
no, it's sooner than that. It's been pushed back, a couple of years, but
Okay.
it's almost, it's ready to go to the cruise.
Now, they're breaking up the old pad and completely taking them out, redoing the drainage.
You know, removing it and then rerouting the drainage. So I've got, I'll say.
You mentioned at the last meeting that it was on 16, was good.
Excuse me, gentlemen, can you guys speak up a little bit? We're having trouble hearing you.
We're asking when it actually goes to bid for the basketball courts.
I think they're late.
If there's a couple weeks, I know there's some delays. Okay.
But it's moving along.
It's moving along.
So I'm just curious where the delay is. I mean, what are we waiting?
I think one of the reasons one of the stuff that we were looking at is the lights, the lighting stuff. We wanted to make sure that lights. Stuff.
Yeah, so they had those few questions on the 24th.
Yeah.
Now I'm here the 24th.
So we made some clarification with them that for now, we can add some shades for future development. So we can go over later on, but for now, just to license out those additional 100,000.
But you're right, if the pond closes, it costs.
Yeah. Especially during the summer, it's like, you know, it's dark.
All right.
Okay, well, moving on, update on the traffic signal optimization, South Coverdell Treadway intended intersection. I just sent council an update on this item yesterday. The work is expected to start, I think initially today.
They did. I was up there and they actually have it, I mean, northbound, the sign's up now,
Okay,
but the southbound is not yet, so I'm assuming tomorrow will be working on it. So they were there.
Right.
Just ready to-
yeah, so there'll be basically new traffic signal heads on the north and southbound lanes of the Boulevard. We'll not have a 4-signal head rather than a 3-signal head, one of which will be the additional head, or the additional light is this blinking yellow, so which is yield on yellow. As long as there's no oncoming traffic, folks can make that left-hand turn. So that should enable folks that have otherwise been stuck in the queue waiting for the phasing, they'll be able to make that turn. So that should make the signal, our folks who have to wait, provide a shorter, but likewise safe time frame for them to move through that intersection. I think hopefully will be a welcome change.
You'll get a positive response to that.
Police department and the Plaza, Arbors,
Yeah.
new project, that's
Yeah.
moving along.
Project's underway.
So, just on the Arbors, we need to get a price and get a plan for the ones that are not in the funds. Along Boulevard, they're the same condition as the ones that are in the funds. So,
We've been talking about that. Craig has some interest in perhaps doing that himself, so we may do that internally. He's looked at it and thinks he can do it. He got a bid for the wood that we would need to, because the wood would have the 4x4s on top would have to be replaced. So I think we're gonna go.
Does he have time to do that on his schedule?
Oh, keep asking him, like, we can do this way. He's like, why? I can do this. Like, he wants to do it.
He was asking to utilize Javier, he wanted Javier to help him when he's not reading meters. We'll schedule those projects
He
around.
wants to do it in the fall.
that's cooler, yeah.
So
So that's great, as long as it's on the radar, because they're in equally bad condition, they really need to be maintained. So,
yeah, he's got estimates for the lumber and he's raring to go. So I think we're gonna.
Right.
I know this would be the thing need to be done. I just don't want to see staff taking on new projects when there's other things sitting on the shelf when we'd be contracting this out with somebody.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I agree with you 100%. Sharon, you know, we had that discussion with our staff. It was kind of a function, not all the boards were rotted, some did be, you know, are in good shape. So it was just a matter of, if you do everyone, you can kind of replace the bad ones. And or take the ones that need to be treated down and so I think it's just a little more maybe hands-on approach to make sure we're being as efficient as we can with city, but if we see that it lingers for any reason, we'll just go get it. Okay. Because those are the treatment is actually as expensive or more expensive than doing paint, because they're just it's kind of an intensive work. So the thought was we were going to replace them, we could get them staying back in the yard and just come in and install them, which is a fairly easy.
And those things have been up now since 2004, I guess, somewhere around there. And I think it never got done. Off the plaza. Yeah, no, off the plaza. Never got done.
And they really need regular meetings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next time, Cherry Creek access, we had there was a new item for discussion in the last meeting. Where we landed was the legal review of the easement. We had a meeting with city attorney and staff, his legal team on this, and we're just waiting for the review. But the press is the priority, so I know that
So just one other thing on that project, we really need to put something in place to put a sidewalk that when you come down to turn north, you have to go out in the street to go around the guardrail to get on the sidewalk because there's that little creek there. And, you know, I think somehow we're going to have to figure out how, whether it's a little bridge that goes over the creek or something, but Vanessa, maybe you could take a look at that and give us some ideas. But really, with the kids going to be, there's going to be family units there, and we know they're going to be walking to town. And we really got to figure that out.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually something we talked about early on. You know, ideally there would be a pedestrian bridge there. Maybe that's a grant project or something. Look at the challenge part of it is that where it lands on the north side private property. So we have to get a property acquisition or right of way or easement from the property owner. But we did think is a temporary measure. We can talk to Vanessa and maybe have Debbie because can we create something similar where you have an asphalted curb or even a K-rail there so that intervening time until we get a bridge.
Shoulder or some kind of, we have talked about this a lot, Joe. We tried to get the development to do something, but it's became really expensive for the bridge. I think the neighbor to the north wasn't really cooperative on wanting to. Eric, on automotive. And so Vanessa, we should get together and try to
Come up with some options because it is a safety issue there. And the other thing that came up at the last meeting was suggestions of a crosswalk going across the street so if people want to go up. We really have to take a look at that.
Yeah.
And we talked about the traffic study that's going to be done at Hillsbury Avenue. And if the same consultant could take a look at that area. Because they're going to be walking both ways out of that project. They come over that 35 miles an hour, visibility is not good. And we just need to get some signage, maybe crosswalk. We really have to take a look at that. It's unfortunate we're reactive, but that's typical when these required projects. And then we can't control the structure set in.
We tried on that bridge.
No, it's but we just don't want to see anybody get hurt. And that's the big deal. So,
David?
Okay, Well, moving on the first Mccarter Bridge pedestrian improvement project, we were provided 65% design drawings for the bridge. They were reviewed by both Vanessa and Hector and Darren. I know both Vanessa and Hector both provided comments back to Department of Planning, Department of Public Works on the bridge plan. So they involved us in the early review and comment. And a lot of our comments are specific to really the laning of the bridge adjacent to River Park and how the interface is going to work and what improvements with the sign and then the traffic treatment as you move into the city. So that's really where our focus was, not so much on the bridge itself. And so, you know, I anticipate usually once it's 65, they'll do either 75 or 90% drawing. I don't know what their contract is, but I will expect to probably provide us with updated design drawings in the future, which I think they're kind of on to complete the work. So, I mean, it's nice that they saw some progress and provided us the opportunity with for review and provide comments. So we'll continue to monitor and track that project.
And the easement's all in place.
It's been recorded. Yeah.
All right, continue on.
Update on Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. I don't have much to report. I mean, other than, you know, as I mentioned earlier, for big grant, we need a variance, so we're seeing less inflow into the eastern fork of the Russian River that flows into Lake Mendocino. There is a time frame on that. I think December 1st or until the lake, what should we call it?
Lake Cooper.
Lake Cooper. If it reaches a certain level, then that variance will no longer be applicable. But we just continue to monitor it and see, you know, what changes and what potential impacts there are to our city.
Airport capital improvement.
No updates on that, Jared.
Okay. On the other page, we've got update on 6 acres water company pre-annexation.
Yeah, so the state has approved the work plan for the 6 acre mutual water companies, you know, evaluation for annexation. And so that's all moving forward. There's also concurrently the engineering work, the design work for extension of water and sewer moving forward. It's kind of a slow process. They're still working on the scope for hiring the project manager that would oversee all this. But we were kind of related to this. We were notified of their interest in a joint annexation application that included 6 acres and South Cloverdale. And my response was, council hasn't had the opportunity to review the South Coverdell mutual water company annexation. And you know, I thought that. So what I asked when that email came in was, can we set up a meeting for the mayor and vice mayor to discuss what that process would look like? My perspective would be that means we need to do from the council presentation on what they're asking for, what are the necessary steps, because with 6 acre process that was fairly well vetted. We had a lot of review, a lot of opportunity for council's comments to be reflected in what the plan looked like. And South Coverdell has a lot of unique characteristics to it that are quite a bit different than 6 acres. There's land that's in the city that's served by South Coverdell, so that's kind of different than 6 acres. So there's, you know, existing property that's, you know, technically in the city already. So it's quite a bit different. And I think the sanitary sewer issues are a little bit more significant in South Cloverdell than they are in 6 acres. So, you know, it's the other factors there are something we need to look at so that we're not burdening our ratepayers in disproportionate way.
Why did they want to tie them both together?
Well, I think if all things were equal and if they were on the same place, it might make sense. Because you know, you look at it, you wanna go through the process twice.
Yeah, but I agree with you. It's a totally different animal than the 6 acres. I mean, that church lane area is just so much work needs to be done there. And, I think it's a completely different, like I said, animal. And I can't imagine what the cost on that's going to be.
I agree with you 100%.
It should be separate.
Chair, and so, I mean, I guess at least, I think council should have the opportunity to discuss it, or review it, discuss it, share their perspectives, and then we decide, you know, where do you want to go from there? You know, there's some strong personalities that are involved, and so want to, you know, there's some folks that want, they really want to come in and they want it to be done.
You're very optimistic.
You're
trying to. We'll get it done right now.
Are you talking about strong personality, 6 acres or so?
Both.
Yeah. If they've got it. Yeah, we can't do one here, you know.
Well, we have an annexation procedure spreadsheet. Basically, you come to the council first,
Yeah.
and say, are you interested in this annexation? And then you go through the rest of the steps, which they haven't done.
Why do they even have to meet with the mayor and the vice mayor? Why can't you just tell them, no, it's separate, we're ready to go?
Well, I can do that, and I, you know, I felt inclined to do that to a certain extent, but it is a policy decision. And, again, there are, the folks representing this, I think, I'm not even sure they view it as a council decision, but they bring it forward for the decision.
So next is what, Rule 28?
Yeah, that's the same item, but we're still kind of in a position where we need to identify a project and bring that forward.
Yeah, that's the underground on the
Yeah.
south side. And,
Well,
oh, you know what? Speaking of that south side, the other day I was down there driving around. And I walked, I didn't walk, but I drove through the winery warehouse. And they had a sign on the window that they're applying for a permit to sell alcohol. So I want to send that to you, Kevin, the picture that I took, because I didn't think any sales were going to take place out of that facility.
Normally, once they apply for ABC, then ABC comes to us and says that they need use permit, they need that, what they need from the city. So I haven't heard that yet. So yeah, if you could send that, I can talk to, yeah.
Kevin,
No, not Kevin, there's the manager of the co-op.
yeah, but aren't we entitled to some sales tax?
oh, it would be, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is, and they said there were gonna be no sales. So. Okay, I'll get it to you. Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to go, but I thought that would be a good source of revenue.
Yeah.
You know, and I wonder how many of those signs we missed. You know,
No, like I said, once they apply to ABC, but ABC always comes to the local jurisdiction. So we route to police or whatever to do what we have to do.
okay. All right.
I have a little update on private funding. So the county is leading up the countywide initiative for extending broadband. We have a staff, or not staff, but a meeting with county staff and city staff tomorrow. They're really looking to garner the interest of cities on a countywide initiative to extend the broadband with the goal of adjusting a couple of things. One is, you know, most of the way the legislation is written, the funding legislation is to extend broadband to underserved communities. So that, you know, a lot of that's targeting areas outside the incorporated city, but you know, looking for areas where development plan that could help. That's going to help us with the funding piece. If you know, come from Paul, it's identified a lot of funding support. We have that plan. So it's kind of nice to see the counties trying to develop a plan and then working with us. Since a lot of it is cross-jurisdictional in nature in terms of the improvements. So I'll have more to report on this item next time, but we are meeting with county staff this week to discuss that. The other issue I brought up was resiliency, and because
Mike's name became yours.
oh, the other issue was with resiliency, because as we know during the fire, the city really in its entirety lost internet service. Most of us rely on Comcast, and so, you know, is there alternatives to that can be developed to ensure that we have access to the internet during major disaster events. So those kind of things we'll report out. As we move on.
Anything else for the good of the cause?
So could we look at getting a Bluetooth mic that sits on the table? Because we're using this room more and more for
Yeah.
meetings, and I know we've had problems.
It's right there, so if you're not directly in it.
Yeah, but if we could get a second mic that's right here. Yeah, and then it would be, I think, resolve that problem.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah, thank you.
It is a little bit hard to hear you guys when you're not looking directly this way.
Yeah, the
and then-
mic's far away.
We're hearing that.
Yeah, and then when Mike says something, it comes through my speakers like, wow. It's better than a cup of afternoon coffee.
Wake up.
Well, I want to thank you, Vanessa, for coming and sharing with us today. Mike, I'm sorry, we missed that.
Nothing, I was just teasing.
Okay. No, okay. Well, thank you, Michael, for coming. I hope you're feeling better. And Vanessa, good seeing you. We'll see you next month, if not before. David, Kevin, Hector, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Have a good
You
one.
all. Seeing you. Thank you.
Michael, not feeling well?
Yeah.